Omojo is going to be telling us our experience starting out as a in product management, how she got a role at the current company she's working at, and of course every other thing that is there for us to know. Shout out to our second speaker, that's in person of Ewerechukwu Asaka. Shout out to Damilola Olayode. Yeah, we are ready to learn from you all. So let's have Omojo Anwuzia. Good evening, Omojo Anwuzia.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Blessing. Good evening, and hello to everyone on the call. Such a
Evening.
privilege joining you guys this evening to talk about product management. I think right now I'm to really introduce myself and talk about my experiences, but you've done that. Or Blessing, can you put me on track? Like, what's
Yeah,
expected
you can.
of me right
I believe I don't. I also believe I don't know much more about you except for the ones that I've just mentioned. So I believe you are going to get us right into the all everything that Omojo is about.
now? Okay, thank you. All
Yes,
right, so
very much.
my name is Omojo Anwuzia, and I currently work as a program manager at Microsoft in ADC here in Lagos, Nigeria. So in Microsoft, what I do is to drive the API compliance for Windows products. Yeah, across. So for every Windows product that comes out, my job, the job of my team is to ensure that they comply with API compliance. So this has to do with building tools that would enable us to ascertain or do our jobs properly, and working with devs to do that, working cross-functionally across other business teams as well to communicate the whole um, API compliance and mutually process to optimize and digitize things from the current way that they are. Before I joined Microsoft, I worked at Tangerine. I was a senior product manager at Tangerine. So I don't know how many of you know Tangerine Africa. So Tangerine Africa is a product that kind of combines a lot of things together. There was insurance, pensions, and banking. So I basically came in because of my experience at OPE to help build a bank from scratch. And there again, I worked with developers, designers, researchers. I mean, really amazing people in bringing all of this together. So that's really what product managers do. You help to build successful products. You sit at the intersection of working with designers, with engineers, with testers across really the business. So you work with technology, you work with business side, you work on the user experience, and you just like sit at the intersection, to drive the vision, the strategy, and the execution, right? So for me, I'll broadly divide what we do into two. There is a discovery side and there is a delivery side. And for PMs, your job is heavy on the discovery side. So if we think about it, if we say product managers determines what gets built, it means that you need to discover what needs to be built, you need to define it. And so that's really discovery. So I think I'm going off the introduction of myself, so I'll just come back on track. So before Tangerine, I worked at OPE, and at OPE, I worked across. I was the PM for the agent app. I was PM for merchant payment. I was PM for international remittance. And so in startups, basically, you get to do a lot of work, assume a lot of roles. And to be honest, it really helps you in getting in getting a hang of things very, very quickly. And I mean, I worked with amazing people as well, and you continue to do so as you progress in your career. Now, before I joined OPE, I worked in Guarantee Trust Bank. I started off in Guarantee Trust Bank working in e-payment operations. And at e-payment operations, my job was really taking customers' requests, attending to them, and in doing that, I was hearing a lot from the customers in terms of their pain points, their needs. I also worked on data while I was in e-payment operations. And so what I did in e-payment operations helped me to transition into being a PM in Guarantee Trust Bank. So what I'm saying this is you may not necessarily be a PM right now. You may be working in roles that are not PM, but it is definitely possible for you to switch into becoming a product manager, right? Either within the same company or outside. So this is just a run through of my introduction. I dropped a few things there to help us as PMs, and I'll be taking more questions from Blessing as it comes. Thank you very much. Hi, Blessing.
All right. Yes, thank you very, very much. Um, so I believe other people have questions, but I have a question. How did you get into product management, and what led to you coming into product management?
All right. Thank you for that question. I think is really good. I've really always been interested in building things. I've always been bothered by pain points when things are not easy enough, when it's difficult to get things that can be seemingly simple, right? And even at university level, I was in SciF, we're doing things that were mini projects, doing community based, I was a team leader at the time in SciF. We're coordinating people, having different projects. And from there, really, I really had that passion to help people and create solutions that eased people's pain. So when I came into GT Bank as operations, as e-payment operations, my job there really had to do with attending to customers' issues with our electronic payments. And so you see problems like, oh, someone made a transfer and it didn't go through and refunds are not coming on time. Just really some really pain points that otherwise could have been avoided. So attending to all of those made me take the request of the customers and I can anticipate potential solutions already. And because we worked in a co-space, e-payment operations and those in product management and the product managers, I was able to really communicate the pain point that the users had. And another thing that I did as well while I was in GT Bank was I worked on data a lot. So customer data, I was diving into data. I could see what customers were doing on USSD. I was breaking it down for my bosses then to say, oh, from this data, we have number of people who do transfers, we have number of people who do airtime, and how can we cross-sell? Just really looking for opportunity in data, and that also fueled my interest. And then the third was a human-centered design course that I did also while I was at GT Bank. It really was about solving problems from the position of customers. And so human-centered design really was that tick for me at the end of the day, because I became really customer obsessed. I kind of honed my skills on asking questions, my curiosity, the project that I did while taking the human-centered design. And that was it. And so my approach to problem solving improved. Like I ask questions, get down to the root of the problem, and yeah, basically. So those really fueled my knowledge or my interest in product management. And so when the opportunity came and I transitioned, I mean, it was just from there upward, right? And so I transitioned to PM in GT Bank, and I was working on channel expansion for the USSD merchant payment at the time in GT Bank. And so when there are things that, and I think one major thing for me at GT Bank that I did with the knowledge that I had was, I don't know how many people know cardless withdrawal. I was basically able to redesign the experience nationwide on all ATMs for cardless withdrawal. Something was off. There was an existing design that was there for a long time. But then data, again, talking about data, revealed to me that, I mean, a lot of people initiate cardless withdrawal from their phone, but when they get to the ATM, they don't perform that transaction. And so it left a gap on questions like you would have when you're working on project to say, if X number of people initiated a cardless withdrawal, what's happening? Why is the number so low for the number of people who eventually carry out that cardless withdrawal? So, I mean, with that kind of question that I had to do some interviews, right? Like going to the branch, visiting and checking out customers who initiate cardless withdrawal, asking them, oh, how would you operate this normally? And then spotting the gaps, running a number of experiments, life with people. And then it just discovers that the people you're building for, there is a gap. And you have assumptions, you validate the assumptions, and then you go back, do a redesign, a prototype, etc., right? And do that. And then, yeah, from there, I moved on to OPay and then to Microsoft. So I don't know if questions are going to come round back to me as to how I got into Microsoft and what it takes to get a role in a big, a PM role in a big tech company. Please feel free to, yeah, take it on from here.
All right, all right. Thank you very much. So we're going to take one question, then we'll bring on the second speaker. That's in person of Ewerechukwu, right? So let's take Chioma Benedict. Then after Chioma Benedict, we would introduce our next speaker. Chioma,
Okay.
please unmute yourself. Let's have you. Chioma Benedict.
Okay. Okay. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Okay. What caught my attention was when you said you started your PM journey in Guaranty Trust Bank. I think also entry level, going into the entry level space, and I really want to do PM. So I don't know, maybe there are some steps I can take in order to get a PM role there instead of maybe marketing or operations, or I don't know whether it is a personal, whether I should reach out to you personally or I should just ask here. I was kind of confused, but maybe in order not to like get or do what I don't want to do or do because I'm not interested in, I really love product management. So I'm looking for a way to get into product management with GT Bank. So maybe there are some courses or something I could take, or maybe, I don't know. I just need your
Okay.
advice on it.
All right. So
Thank
we
you.
have, okay, thank you. So if you're entering GT Bank, what I know for entry level is somehow they just post you to anywhere. But what I've seen while I was at GT Bank, I've seen people move from other roles to product management roles in e-payment. And what it basically did was to show prowess, right? Which means they picked a product in GT Bank, they kind of analyzed it like a product manager would, identified pain points, potential solutions, and then shared with the head of product management or e-payments in GT Bank. So I don't know what the structure is right now, but definitely what we can do, and my advice to everyone on the call trying to navigate new role, you can have a project or take an existing product, find out what you think the problem is, what can be improved, document them, and feel free to share with whoever the director of product is for those roles, right? And yeah, And if you're able to do so, one way or the other, I mean, you can leverage on that which you've worked on, and it could result in something good. But yeah, if you want us to talk afterwards, we can. We can do that. Um, yes.
All right.
So, Blessing, the
All right,
question I
thank you
have.
very much.
Okay, thanks. So is this going to come back around after we've gone round?
Yeah, it's coming back around. So I just want to call Ewere and Damilola to come introduce themselves. Then we can now
Yeah.
get like fully.
All right.
All right. Hi, good evening, Ewere. Um, welcome to Enoverlab. My name is Blessing Ewerechukwu Asaka. Let's hear from you.
Hi, Blessing. Thank you so much. So my name is
Hi.
Ewere, and I'm currently a product manager at Spotify. I've been here for 1 year, and I graduated in 2021, and I studied computer science at Covenant University. So my journey to product management started as an undergraduate in Covenant University. In my 3rd year, I took product dives course on getting like introduction to product management, and that's one thing that I know really helped in breaking down the fundamentals of what product management is, because I didn't have any previous experience, but I was interested in learning about product management. So one thing I would recommend is looking for any course online. It could be on any learning platform that just basically breaks down what product management is, tries to show you like what definitions are, what user research is, how you create user stories. So it just helps throw more light, and then that will help you, it'll help you bring you up to speed with what product management is about. Then after the course, because I was still an undergraduate, most product management roles would require some form of experience or transferable skills that you can work with when you're looking for these roles. So there might not necessarily be a lot of entry level PM roles. So I learned about what they call rotational product management programs or associate product management programs. And I made it my goal to get into one. So typical companies that have them are Google, Meta, Spotify, and some other companies in the US to have this kind of programs for entry level, and they have a cohort and they're taking a certain amount of people each year. So I made it my goal to get into one. So from there I started attending hackathons. And what hackathons did for me was that it gave me projects to work on. Because I'm still an undergraduate, I might not necessarily have real work-life experience aside from my internships, which were also helpful. Hackathons gave me the room to work on products, brainstorm, come up with user stories, have a prototype. So going through that whole process gave me things I could put on my resume and talking points during interviews. So that was one way that I went about it. And then I looked out for these companies and when their hiring sessions start. And I reached out to people that work at these companies to ask what their experience was like interviewing. And then one thing about like reaching out to people is that try not to ask questions that you can get answers from on the internet. So after reading up on it, and then you can go to ask them questions you feel that you have not gotten good answers to. Then for my hackathon, school experience, internship, I worked on my resume, because working on your resume is one important thing when you're applying, because that's the first step before even getting these roles. So learned how to create like a good resume, started applying, and when I got like my first interview um, invite, started preparing for the interview with mocks, and then resources that helped for the interview are like things like cracking the PM interview, swipe to unlock, decode and conquer. So there are a lot of PM resources that were also super helpful. And yeah, so with the typical interview process, you apply, you go for a bit, you get rejected, you apply again, and until you get your offer. So that was really it for me. So currently, I've been at Spotify for a year, and at Spotify, it's called a rotational program. I get to rotate across different teams. My first team, I worked with localization and ensuring that Spotify, because we recently launched in a lot of markets, And with launching in different markets, you want to, because it's a Western product, you want to ensure it's properly localized. That was what my first team worked with. My second team, which I finished with last week, was focused on the paying domain and everything that has to be payment for like premium products. And now I started a full-time product management role this week, and I'll be working with the Sub-Saharan African team to see what the product looks like in Sub-Saharan Africa and give a more localized experience. So yeah, that's been my journey so far and how I got into my role. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Eric. That was explanatory. It's good to have you here. Let's just quickly go over to Damilola. Damilola Olayode is currently a PM at Microsoft. So we would like to also hear from Damilola. Hi, Damilola. Good evening.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everybody. Sorry, I
Owodele
can hear some
Olawale.
background.
Yes, Owodele Olawale, please mute your mic. Everyone, let's ensure that our mics are muted. Let's have only the speakers. Damilola, please go ahead. Good evening.
All right, thank you. Good evening and hi, everybody. My name is Dami. I currently work for Microsoft as a PM, right? I'll just try and keep it as short and simple as possible, just a brief summary, right? I started my career as a Microsoft partner intern somewhere in Lagos, right? It's a internship program created by Microsoft where you're kind of like paired up with their partners in Lagos, right? And you get to learn and basically learn skills, right? Skills that will be useful for you in your work work environment in the future or presently, right? So I started out my career with Reliance Info Systems, they're a Microsoft partner. So I basically started as a dev, right? Building and extending existing Microsoft products for their clients in Nigeria, right? So the likes of your Microsoft Nav, Dynamics, basically just extending and customizing those products to better suit client needs, right? I transitioned from being a dev, I had a short stint as a dev, and I transitioned from being a dev when I joined TeamApt, right? TeamApt is a financial tech company here in Lagos as well. So I basically was building different financial products for different financial institutions, right? Things ranging from basically automating processes that existed in the banks, right, that they were doing manually and was taking up a lot of resources and time, right? Things like acquiring systems, POS acquiring systems, automating back office operations like your settlements, your reconciliation processes and things like that, right? So that's my stint with TeamApt gave me the opportunity to work every tech related, right? And then I joined MS about a year ago, right? And for MS, I'm more focused on building sustainable products. Basically, I work in the sustainability is with reducing Microsoft's carbon emissions coming from their products, right? It's a very broad statement, but in simple terms, it just reduce the carbon emissions that your systems, your Windows systems are emitting, basically. So there's some software side to that and some hardware side to that. So it's very interesting and I'm enjoying that right now. I'll just leave it at that so we can have enough time for questions. But yeah, so back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Damilola. That was short. Glad to have you all here, Damilola, Omojo, and Ewere. So I have asked Omojo a question, so I'd like to throw that question to Ewere and Damilola before we get, we have all the hands up. So I'd just like to ask Ewere and Damilola. So I'll be directing my question first to Ewere, then Damilola would go next. So I have asked I've asked Omojo what led her to, being like saying, oh, I want to transition. So I'd also like to hear from, okay, Area has given us a bit of that, but it's not bad if we hear more from her, especially like what led her into the product. So yeah, Area, let's have you.
Okay, so I think my journey to product management was just a bit like of experimentation, because as a computer science student, ideally people expect that you'd want to code. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I knew I didn't want to code at that point. So I was trying out my hand on like different things: design, data science, project management. And then a friend told me about product management because she thought that I might like it because I had already done an internship at KPMG, and I sort of like consulting, but I still wanted to be sure of what I wanted to do after. So after I did product dives course, I think that was it for me, because the course was really explanatory and helpful into showing what a product manager actually does in their day to day. And then you have the capstone project. So after that course, I sort of made up my mind like, yes, I think this is what I want to do full time.
All right. Thank you very much for answering our questions. So let's have Damilola next.
Yeah. So for me, it was more of a case of I applied to Team Up. I was about to apply to Team Up as a dev, right? And the person who told me about the opportunity also told me that they were desperately in need of PMs, right? And that kind of like sparked the conversation between me and my friend. I like, okay, what exactly is the role of a PM in this company? Because in my experience, a PM can mean different things to different people, right? Depending on where you're working, it also depends on what requirements you be required to do as a PM, right? So we sparked the conversation of what exactly these guys needed in terms of a product manager. And I've always been somebody that was fascinated by the business side of things, right? Actually taking a problem from the client, right? Like an abstract problem, right? Taking it from the client and trying like figuring out ways to solve that problem, right? The most efficient way to solve that problem. So after hearing about this opportunity, I kind of applied for the role, right? And during my interview, it also came across that I was very interested in the business side of things, which was an advantage for me. And the fact that I also had some technical experience, right, also meant that it would be slightly easier for me to work with devs, right, in terms of understanding what they were doing and how it should work. So I think for me, my transition, I would also say, was kind of like an experiment, just like Ewe said, right? It was more of an experiment for me as well, but so far so good, basically.
All right, thank you very much. Experimentation. Me too, I want to experiment too. Let's have Adeyemi Adetola White Hope. So guys, if you want to ask your question, you can direct your question to any of the speaker, or you can just direct your question to the three speakers. They are capable to answer the question. So Adeyemi,
Yeah, hello,
please go
good
ahead.
evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, we can hear you.
Okay, so my question will be to Omojo, and she said, she had advised earlier about trying to get into some of the cohort programs that you can find. I'm not sure if she was the one that said that or it was the other lady. But then I know that I've been trying to follow Microsoft Leap for quite a while now, and I'm not so sure because I've read online. In fact, I'm always stalking the Microsoft Leap website for now to looking out for when exactly the cohorts program for Lagos is going to be opening. But there's not been anything specific on that website as of now. So I would just like to ask if there's any information you could give to guide me concerning that. Then in terms of getting into the PM role in itself, what role does specific industry knowledge play in being a good PM product manager for short? That's my question.
Maybe I can speak a bit to the cohort thing since I spoke about it. Then maybe Omojo can speak more on it.
All right.
Okay, so for the Microsoft, there's an echo. I'm not sure where it's coming from. I'm sorry. Okay. For the Microsoft Leap program, I know I've been keeping track of that too, and surprisingly, I haven't seen anything on Lagos, so I'm not sure I can really give an answer as to why that is. Maybe people that work at Microsoft might have more light. But what I'll say is, if the Microsoft Leap program, you've still not gotten anything from their website as to when the Lagos date opens, I'll say look out for similar programs, and you can apply to them when they open. That's one thing I know that helps. So if you're interested in getting into an APM program or you know about the Google one, I would say maybe look out for other companies that have similar things, and then in the meantime work with those ones until what you want opens up.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
I
you.
don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. Thank you very much, Ewerechukwu, for um, answering that. And I'd also like to add that I think this time of the year, there seems to be a slowdown, or will I say a pause on some of these activities. And I mean, you can still keep looking. And just like she said about checking out other programs, I'm going to send a URL now to the chat on APM list. Is more like a list of openings for associate product managers, those who are just going to be starting off for the first time. And then you can see it houses a list of different companies and the roles that they have opened. Some have, you know, come to a halt for the year, but then you can see others as well. So I would say maybe the hiring pause could be affecting the program you're looking out for, but you should definitely continue to look out. And I'll be sharing the apmlist.com now on the chat. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much for that one. Um. Okay. I don't know if Damilola will be willing to add to that, or we should go ahead.
I think they've covered everything, so we can go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that one. Ruth Fashino, let's have you. Be on mute.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. He had
Okay.
a second part to his question. Just confirm if you answered that. About what
Okay.
industry? Yeah, I'm not sure.
I didn't even get that, but can
Okay.
he all right, let's just have the next person. I believe he's going to come up to, if he does not have an answer to the question, I believe he's going to definitely come up to ask the question again. All right, let's have Ruth Fashino. Ruth, please unmute and let's have your question. Is Ruth Fashino there?
Hello, yes, I'm speaking. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, good evening, ma.
Go ahead.
I actually want to ask a question actually, but I think it was Ewe, or I don't know which of them answered the question slightly just now, but actually like if she could lay more emphasis and all. So I actually was going to ask, I'm actually like just transitioning into the product management space, like literally just transitioning. So she's mentioned something about associate PM roles, and I would like for her to, speak more about that. Like, obviously, I'm new here, I don't have any experience, I'm literally just taking a course. So I'd like to know how and what I process run fast and smoothly. Yes, that's my question. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's have any of the speakers. I believe this question is sent to Ewere, right? Yeah, Ewere, please.
Okay,
I don't
so
know if you can throw more.
I can throw more light on what associate product management roles are. They're basically for entry level PMs, people that are transitioning into product management and might not necessarily have work experience, PM work experience. So there are two kinds of APMs. So there are APMs that are new graduates and they just finished university and then got into the APM role. And then there are APMs that have had work experience elsewhere and now transitioning to PM roles. So it's also very good to identify like which kind of APM roles you're looking out for. So for some companies like Google and Spotify, their APM programs are targeted towards new grads. And then if you have work experience, it shouldn't ideally be more than 1 or 2 years. And like new grads, it could be new grads, people that have just finished their masters or undergraduate degrees. So that's one type. Then for Meta also targets people that they've had like work experience, like it could be up to 5 years in other industries. Let's say banking, whatever industry you're coming from, that's not product management, and you want to transfer to product management or pivot to product management. Meta has a program for that. Yeah, so it depends on what kind of situation you're in now. That will also inform the kind of companies that you apply to. So, but like Omojo mentioned, APM list has this very comprehensive list that has APM roles. So just go to their websites, check what their requirements are, and if you fit, then you can apply. Yeah, I think that's it. Then for most Nigerian companies, they might not have like the structured APM role. So entry level PM roles that maybe have like require 1 to 2 years of experience. If you have transferable skills, you can also shoot your shot at them. It doesn't necessarily have to be PM experience. Just calling that out because you might not see associate product manager roles in Nigeria, but you might have like PM roles that require like 1 to 6 years of experience. So if you also fit that, you can apply.
All right. Thank you very much, Ewere, for that one. So I have a question for Ewere, Dami, and Omojo. So I'd like to ask, what was your biggest challenge, getting a PM job at your current roles, right? Let's start with Damilola. Yeah.
I think that one is very interesting. So for me, most people don't say this when they are telling you about their experience and stuff, but the time I got hired by Microsoft wasn't the first time I applied, right? So I think for me, one of the biggest challenges was not giving up on working for them, right? Sometimes it's easy to get discouraged when you're applying for things and it's not necessarily coming at the time you want it to. And there's always the challenge of feeling like, oh, you're not good enough and stuff like that. So it's just important to keep building on your skills, right? Keep improving yourself, right? Keep learning the things that you feel are very important in your role, in your space. Talk to people that are in that space as well. Get advice from them, right? So you can maneuver the rejections, like somebody said in the chat, right? Effectively. So I'd say I'm pretty sure some of the other speakers will have some other experiences as well. But for me, keeping at it was one of the most challenging things for me.
All right. Thank you very much, Damilola. Let's have Ewere.
Okay, the most challenging bit. For like obviously pursuant to everything that Dami said, because it can be very challenging applying for something and getting like rejections. So there's this system that I worked with that helped. If I apply and I don't even get any call back, it's probably like my resume is the problem. If I get like an interview like invite, my resume is probably good, and I need to work on my interviewing skills and things like that. If I'm getting to the final stage, it's probably me not making a good enough impression. Or sometimes some roles are not just meant for you. So just having this healthy balance of, okay, I need to work more on myself, or this role is actually not just meant for me. I think another challenging thing for me was realizing that the interview prep is different from the role itself. So there's a structure to APM interviews, and then the different type of interviews that you have. They're very subjective. There's no right or wrong answer. So that was also something I found challenging. But the fact that after you prepare for the interview, you still have to prepare for the role. I think that was a bit challenging for me. So that whole adjustment was something I found challenging. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Ewere. Let's have Omojo.
Okay,
Omojo pronounced her name differently, but I think I'm pronouncing it differently.
or I'm used to it now. Like you can call me Omo.
Okay.
Yeah, you can call
Omo,
me
okay,
Omo,
yeah, that's
and that goes. Okay, so for me, um, most of my jobs after GT Bank came by recommendation. And I'll just speak a little on that, which is what I would like to add here. If you're working with people, try to put your best effort at the work that you're doing, whether you want to be a PM and you currently don't have a PM role. At that job that you're doing, do your best. It doesn't go unnoticed, even though maybe financial rewards doesn't come immediately. There are people who notice and see you doing your best. There are people who see you trying to get better and all of those. So yeah. And when you start working as a PM, working with development team and all of those, as they move to other places, they tend to recommend people who they think they've worked, who has the skill and all of those. So at the time I was working in GT Bank, I was barely 8 months, so I wasn't really looking, because for me, when I get a job, I don't do less than a year. For my past experiences, I try to do at least a minimum of 2 years, So as at 8 months into Tangerine, I was really swamped up in the work. And somebody who had worked with in OPE that moved to Microsoft called me up and referred me for a role for a PM because there was an opening in the team. And my challenge really was when I saw the JD for the role, because my background has been in payments. Like when I moved to Tangerine, it was like an easy work for me because that's what my background has been, payments. So helping to build a bank from scratch was like no biggie for me. Not pride in the sense, but because I've gotten some experience. And so I see the JD that my friend sends, and I see compliance tools, I see a number of things, and I mean, I just felt like I can't do this, right? Or I felt like my skill set doesn't really match with this, right? And I had that hesitation at first, and I told my friend, like, I don't really think I can do this. It doesn't really match with my previous experience. And he says, Omo, you are one of the best PMs that I've worked with, and I think you can do this. And I mean, he gave me that courage, and I sent him my CV, proceeded to sending it in. The interview process came, they asked me questions, and at the end of the day, yeah, I got the role. And so that fear of me thinking it wasn't a match, I couldn't do this, I'm underqualified, I mean, was one of the biggest threats, even though someone else felt like, oh my, you can, and you have what it takes. So the lesson here from me to those listening to me is self-doubt can come, but let it not hold you back from going for it. Because really, what's the worst that can happen is a rejection. And like someone said on the chat, is rejection your mate, right? Is a rejection, and what happens, you just really move on even when the rejection comes, and like Ewe and Dami said, you just keep getting better, use your CV, and improving your skills. And I'm sorry, I'll also like to speak to ladies on the call. There was a meeting that I was, and HR was saying that ladies should change themselves. Like if a role says we require 5 years experience, you can see a lady that has 4 years and 9 months experience, she would not apply. But a guy with 2 years experience would apply, right? And I think the message here really is go for it. That self-doubt may come, but really go for it. Prepare and yeah, be the best on the journey. And one thing I would emphasize on for interviews when you are going for it is to prepare like your life depends on it. Maybe not, maybe I'm exaggerating, yeah, but to really, really prepare. Check out videos on interviews in the company that you're aiming for. We already talked about some books like Cracking the PM, Decode and Conquer, PM interviews, but you really have to practice to build confidence and yeah, put your best, because at the end of the day, you're competing with a lot of others, especially if you don't have experience, if it's not in the line that you want to. But above all, that self-doubt, try to overcome it, even when it comes your way. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Omojo. And Omojo actually dropped some words of wisdom. She said, self doubt can come, but let's not hold you back when you're applying for PM roles. And she actually said something very important that I've noticed. Even me, I'm guilty of it. When I say a job role and it requires 5 years or 4 years experience, sometimes I tend to hold back. So I've carried it down and I've registered and stamped it in my head. So I'm not going to be limiting myself henceforth. So thank you very much for that one, Omoja. So I have a question. Okay, let me just ask my question, then we can have other people we can have questions from other people whose hands are raised, right? So my question is it's still going to all of you, three of you, Ewe, Damilola and Omo. So yes, you guys are product managers in these big companies and I envy you, Sha. But then what has been like your biggest challenge working as a PM in your current role at the current company that you work in? So let's start from Omojo.
Okay.
Omo.
Hi. Thank you for that question. So for me, it was working on something entirely new, right? I said on the call that I worked in bank and then OP and then Tangerine, basically financial. But then at Microsoft, I'm working on something completely different, not payment related. And so, yeah, relearning came up for me. But the good thing about PMing is the ability to learn something new. And so for me at the beginning, learning something new, ramping up, but I had great colleagues to help out. But then it really felt like I was starting my PM journey like afresh. But then what came really valuable is the experience that I picked up prior to when I joined. It means I was really already able to dissect and really go to the heart of the problem, ask really great questions, and get help from people around. And yeah, so for me, unlike my movement from OP to Tangerine, I basically hit the ground running from day one. But when I moved to Microsoft, it was a relearning opportunity, learning new things, getting help from colleagues. And so the challenge for me was to make sure I ramp up quickly and start delivering, on the team. But yeah, as I spoke to my manager to say, your manager understands. For me, people were helpful. My manager was helpful to know that, oh, this is something new for you. You're doing great. You're ramping up so fast. When I got in my second month, I did a presentation on what my job was about and how I handle my work. And by the time I was done with the presentation, I was really wowed at how much growth that I'd had within the first 2 months. So the challenging part for me was because it was new, I had to learn afresh, but I had uh, great people who I worked with and taught me and gave me all the information that I need to hit the ground running. So that part was challenging for me. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you very much. Okay, let's have Ewery.
The challenging thing for me. So this is like my first ever role. So and being a PM requires you to make like you make decisions that are informed like by data and things like that. But you still have to, when you make that decision, you have to be strong, feel strongly about the decision that you've made, and be able to just carry on with it and convince others that okay, yeah, this is something that we could work on. And at that point, at the beginning, it was very challenging to confidently say, okay, this is the hypothesis I believe is something that we could actually work on. And then my manager was saying, oh, I trust you and I believe that this is something you can do. So one thing was trying to build on like my confidence to actually say, okay, this is something I strongly believe in and I feel we could do this. So and one thing that helps is like ensuring that you've covered as much as possible, like in terms of your data sources, your user research, and things like that. So building up on knowledge sort of helped my confidence level. That was like at the beginning, and then realizing that there's really no decision I'll make now that would like what's the worst thing that can happen? The product will fail, and that's it. But it's not like a do or die affair. It's not like really life threatening. So that was one thing that helped at that point. Yeah, I think that was one of the very challenging things for me.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Let's have Dami.
Okay, thank you. I think my own situation is more similar to Omojo, right? So in coming from a financial background, right? Been working on financial products for a while. I'd say my most challenging part is switching to Microsoft was also ramping up on this space, right? It takes a while to um grow your expertise and gain confidence in the work you're doing when you're working on an entirely new space, right? So it's important, like Omojo said, to try and ramp up as quickly as you can, try and gain as much knowledge of the space as you can, right? So I think it was majorly that, right? Because as a PM, as Ewe mentioned, right, you are proposing things, you're proposing solutions, right? And your solutions can only come from your understanding of the problem, understanding of the space, right? So it's important to ramp up as quickly as possible on your space, right? So you can propose the most efficient solutions for the problems in your space. So for me, I'd say ramping up in the space as Omojo said.
All right, thank you very much. That's on one. So, um, let's have Solomon Ayolake. Solomon, let's have you. Please unmute yourself and
Yeah, hi, hi everyone. Thank you very much for this session. Um, it's been really enlightening. Um, and I'm sure, like everyone else, like we don't take this for granted. Um, yeah, I actually wanted to ask about the APM program. Um, do they usually accept people from remote locations, like applying for a Meta RPM program while being in Nigeria? Because I recently applied to Meta's RPM program when it was open. And I don't know, I feel what I sent in is a pretty strong application, but maybe not strong enough for them. So I just want to ask if they accept from other remote locations, then also the user research course that Omojo took. If you'd like to share the link to that research. Thank you.
For APM roles, yes, they accept from remote locations, and ideally they would want to sponsor your relocation because they believe you'd learn faster, like you're within a team. But then, like, different companies have what works for them. And another thing to call out is that times are changing. So the whole thing like happening with the economy and things like that, some companies are having like hiring freezes and might not be hiring as frequently as they used to. So sometimes it might not be, if you feel that you put in a very strong application, it might just be something to do with the times that the company's at now. So that's one thing to call out so that you're not too hard on yourself if you get like a rejection now. But yes, they accept from like the location. If you apply to an office in EMEA, they will ideally go through with your application and sponsor for relocation if they do that. It just depends on the company you're applying to.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
All
Then
right.
okay.
Okay, yes. Please go ahead.
Yes, he asked a part about design thinking. I
Yeah,
think
you said you took a course on was it
yes,
user
on
research?
human-centered design, and I was saying that
Yes,
was one
human
of
centered.
the things that further fueled my interest because what human-centered design is basically is you building things from having the user in mind at the center of it all. So the experience before now, some people go ahead and build things without really factoring in what the ideal user needs, the pain points, and all of that. So human-centered design or design thinking just um, really teaches you to constantly put the user at the center of the solution that you build and problems that you solve. So I did mine with IDEO at the time, IDEO. I put that on the chart. And you can basically take any design thinking course online, Coursera. I see a number of them there as well.
Okay. Mhm. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So I don't know if Dami would like to add to that before we go ahead.
Yeah,
All
sure.
right.
So like, sorry, just one note. So like they said, it's important to have a user-centric focus when you're designing or trying to like build out things, right? Having the user in mind is very useful. Also working through the use cases of your product or application is very useful, right? There are different techniques to different ways to design user experience and make sure that whatever it is you're building for your user, it is usable and it fits the purpose ideally for the user, right? So there are a couple of courses to check out as well. So there are also user experience trainings on Udemy that you can also check, right? There are courses that will run through some of these contexts for the courses. The name might be different, but what they're running through in the content section of the course is basically the same, and they're just exposing you to most of those ideas and models for building these things. So like she said, you can check out the course she used, but you can also check out other courses on Udemy as well to like get ideas and insight on these things.
All right. Thank you very much, Dami. That was, I believe. Let's have Chimere Chibuzo. Hi, Chimere. Chimere
Hi.
Chibuzo, please. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hi.
thank you so much. I really appreciate. Good evening, everyone. So my question goes to Ewerechukwu. So I want to ask about um the program, the rotational program she that got her into Spotify, because I wanted to apply to the program too, and other ones in a APM list. But the issue I had was the issue of location. It was like even meta. It was like if you're not within their region, there's no need for applying, that you wouldn't be counted and all that. Then secondly, when I was going through some of their questions, I came to find out that they seems to they seems to ask if you've built a product before. But we that are just you're just trying to transition from traditional backgrounds. How are we going to, pass through that particular stage, especially when we don't have the technical background every other person has? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Sorry, what location are you in?
I'm in Nigeria, Abuja precisely.
Okay, I'm asking because I also applied from Nigeria, and I know other people that have applied from Nigeria. So I don't think your location is a problem if you're applying to an office that's located in like EMEA, like that's mostly Europe. Like if you're applying to like the Stockholm office or an office in London or Berlin, if the company sponsors would sponsor your visa, then I don't think it's going to be a problem. And then what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
Okay, most questions from
Okay,
rotational
yes, about
programs,
building
including Facebook. Yes.
the
Yeah.
product. So I think I don't know if Dami and Omojo can also help with this, but for me, one thing that helped that I mentioned was like attending hackathons when I was in the university. I don't know if you would have time to do that now, but hackathons just give me like pet projects to work on. And also, if you're doing some of these courses on like Udemy and all these online learning platforms, they have capstone projects that might help. And then if you don't have that, you could look within your role and look at things that you've managed or things that you've helped build. It all depends on how you approach it. So some like applying to new roles and transitioning would also require you to deeply reflect on things you've done in the past that might be useful. If you don't have the time to like maybe work on a capstone project or attend a hackathon or build things now. So look within your current role. If there are times you've built or managed something, it could also serve in that case. I don't know if Dami or Mojo would have any other thing to add.
Thank you so
Yeah, well
much.
done. They
Appreciate.
were just to add to that, yeah. It's important to try and get as many pet projects as you can, right, when you're starting out. Um, like she said, you can do some from your Udemy courses, you can join hackathons, like stuff like that. But it's important to try and gain some hands-on experience without necessarily getting a job, right? These things will help push your profile and it will help push some sort of experience in your profile as well. So whichever way you can source for projects to work on, even if it's by volunteering to work on something, right? The experience is what you're after, not necessarily what you're getting from the projects, right? So in that situation, I'd advise you try and just source for projects, right? If you know people building something, you can volunteer to help. If it's by hackathons or whatever you can do, just try and find a way to get your hands on something to that you can use as experience.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that one.
Okay.
I don't know. Does Omojo want to add to this?
Yeah. So what Avery and Damian said is apt. And what I can say as well is if you're transitioning in Nigeria, we have boot camps for product management. We already talked about product dive, there's Trefford, there's Utiba, there's, you know, um, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
Yeah, we
yes, we
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
We can
Yes,
hear you.
in Enoverlab. So try and subscribe to those because they give products at the end of the day, and those can be, yes, Enoverlab. And then those can be the project that you work on at the end of the day. You can use that as a product that you've worked on, because working on a product with other team members gives you that feel of identifying problems, brainstorming, bubbling up solution, doing low fidelity prototypes, and help you understand the concept of product management. So you know what Scrum is, what Agile is, introduces you to some tools. And so if you can, please subscribe to those. And with further learning and reading and yeah, reaching out to people to volunteer, it would help. So I recommended someone for an internship role because she took part in a hackathon and she worked with people across, I think, Africa, Ghana, Nairobi, and it was her first experience as a PM. Doing that gave her the opportunity to work with different people. And as a result of her having that experience, other openings showed up for her. So please, these are something you should look into, improving your knowledge, working on projects. And in fact, where do you want to start today? If we say we are PMs and what we do is to bring successful product to the market, solve customers' pain points, what will I do today if I'm not able to afford these trainings? What am I going to do? I'm going to take free courses that are available online. I'm going to look forward to a company that I want to go into. If it's a startup, if it's a company here or abroad, I would apply to the APM role as much as I can. If it's something here in Nigeria, I'll probably take a product that I love or use and break it down, identify some problems, act like I'm the product manager. Sometimes I use WhatsApp a lot and every day. Sometimes I just think to myself like, okay, Oma, what if you're the PM on the WhatsApp app, right? How will you break it down? I look at the features, I see the status, camera, I see how different things work. So just exactly is a product tear down. Pick a product that you like and know why, and pick a product that you don't like and see if you can pen it down. How can I improve this product if I'm a product manager on the team? And so if I'm picking a product that I see opportunities for improvement, I'll definitely document them and reach out to someone that could be of a good place of authority and reach out to say, this is what I've done, this is what I've done, and all of those. For hackathons, please find opportunities for them. Boot camps, find opportunities for them, and just continually learn. And as you do so, work on something practical, document, write down, right? As you learn, don't just take it all in. So when you learn about user research, you can take on something, call a friend, say, oh, I want to interview on this, I want to ask you a question on that. Pick an idea and basically just put in action, action, action. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes the difference. People who take action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Omojo. I mean, the importance of product tear down cannot be overemphasized. We had one recently at Enoverlab, and it was wow. It was massive. Some of our students got, placements, internships, jobs, and all of that. So yes, I agree with Omojo. Product tear downs are a thing, very good one. So let's move ahead to Abidat Akinle. Abidat, let's have you. Kindly unmute and ask your question. Abidat Akinle, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry. Um, I've been raising up my hand since, and I think they've asked most of the questions that I wanted to ask because I'm actually not a product manager. I'm a product designer. Um, my friend gave me this link to join, and it's just all these rejection letters here and there, how to go about it, how to undo the whole situation so that you won't feel like, okay, maybe this is not for me. And the fact that you are looking for an opportunity and it's not like, okay, there are like thousands of designers there to looking for the opportunity. I'm feeling like, oh, am I going to get this? Feeling down, all kind of things. And I feel like they've asked most of the things that I actually wanted to ask. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's have Ibiyemi Adu. Hi, Ibiyemi. Please go ahead to ask your question.
Hi, good evening. I also had some questions that have been answered, but the one I currently have, which I would like insight on, is I'm pretty much aware that product managers tend to work with developers and designers and all that. So I would ask two questions. I would say, how do you get to juggle working with these guys? Because they have like a huge influence on what you do or the product you're trying to build. And also, as a PM, how much impact or influence does knowing how to code, or at the very least having a general idea of what APIs do and callbacks or things around software development, how much influence does that have in you getting a PM role?
All right. Anyone, Dami, Omo, Every would like to answer the
Okay.
question?
I'd say in my own experience, it depends on where you're applying to, right? Some people are big on having technical skills before transitioning into product management. Some people, it's a nice to have. Some people don't really care, right? So I'd say for that, it depends on where you're applying to. Some people don't care about being a dev before or having dev experience. Some people are okay with the fact that you have some product management experience and you've done some stuff before. Some people, based on how the structure of their company is and how closely you'll be working with devs, right? Some people want you to have technical experience, right? But in my own experience, I've noticed that in the bigger companies, right, there are enough engineering managers for you to survive without having technical experience, right? Because you're working as part of a team, and the team is pretty stacked up with engineering talent, right? So you can leverage the experience of those guys and ask questions that you need to and stuff like that. So generally, I'll just say for technical experience, it depends on what I'm applying to.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dami. Omojo, Every, would you like to add to what Dami has?
Yes, I would like to add to what Damia said about working with designers, developers, and all of those. And basically, I think if I got her question right, is on, I mean, how do you work with these people? Or, I mean, Ibiyemi, can you really say the question around this guy so that I can be sure I got it very well?
Okay, yes, I think it's in line with what you're trying to say. You get to work with developers and you work with designers as well, and they have a lot of influence when it comes to building the product you're trying to put together. So how do you get to work with them? Like, people are different, personalities and all that. So what's the balance? How do you create that balance working with them?
Okay, thank you very much. So, um, in the course of my introduction, I talked about the role of a PM, as you'll find in most places, is discovery, right? Discovery is about confirming that this problem that you're building is what's building is valuable, it's of value to the people you're building for, it's viable for the business, it's something that is feasible, meaning your team, your development team can deliver on that. So you as a product manager have to do your work of discovery very well, which is if you have a problem, you can define it well. to say, okay, this is what we're working on. This is who it is for. This is why we're doing this. These are the dependencies, etc. Now, you need to do your job well, because what you do feeds off, or your work it's an input that the designers will use, that the developers would use. So what do I mean? It is you who brings up the requirements for what needs to gets built. It is you who will define it, right? So you work with, so you need to know how you're working with these different people and how to support them. So when working with a designer, for example, you need to let the designer know the problem you're solving, the steps you took, your assumptions you had. You guys can work on validating the assumptions together, which includes maybe if you need interviewing users and all of those are things you can do together. And then you can come up with any low fidelity or have the designer do so, and you guys can go through the design and be aligned. Now, when it comes to the developers, they handle the delivery work, meaning you've discovered what needs to be built and the developers will deliver on it. And this delivery includes their coding, right? So what they're going to code, the problem they're solving is basically the work that you've discovered and have worked with the designer on. So one of the key things with working with these guys is having alignment and carrying your team along, right? So alignment means that when you're working on something, you can let them know, oh, I'm currently doing a discovery work for this. This is what I'll be working on in so time. And they can chime in as well, because they have their inputs are also very valuable, right? So when you do things like this, communicating effectively, right? Making design assumptions and validating them with your designer, doing the alignment work and defining what needs to be done and understanding their role and your role. So for example, how to code it may not really be what you have to tell them to do, because as engineers, you trust them enough to know how to, do that. So when you understand your role and understand theirs, working together would be good, right? One of the greatest people I've learned from, to be honest, have been the developers. So when I joined Open, I got to closer work with the developers more than I did when I was at GT Bank, right? And as you work on product, you will see the need to learn new things like the API, which is the application programming interface, right? There's a book by Zapier on how to use Postman for APIs. But as you work closely with them, they would even become one of the people you should have a close relationship on the development team, because you can freely ask questions and they can give you a response. I hope that this answers your question to a large extent.
It does
Thank you very
justice
much.
to it. Thank you very much.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Let's have Ogene Fego Emede. Hi, Ogene Fego. Let's
Yeah,
have
I
you.
can hear. Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'm fairly
Yes,
new to product management. Can you hear me? Okay.
yes, please, I can.
Okay, I'm fairly new to product management. I have about 6 months experience, and I have two questions and one request. So the first question is, how would you advise people with internships like me? I recently got an internship, but it's a contract internship for about 3 months. So how would you advise me to retain this role, to get my contract renewed when it's expired? How should I put, what extra skills should I show? How should I perform to ensure that you retain me at the company? Then second question is, what certifications do you currently have or hope to get that you think would help with career advancement in your role? Then the request is if you could kindly share your resume and cover letter template so we could see and try to emulate so we can get better roles. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if any of the speakers would be willing to go first. I believe each of you would have a thing or two to say. Dami?
Okay. I can see we're not following the ladies first. Oh, here. So I'd say for retention, yeah, I'll pick up that part of the question, yeah. For retention, I think it's something Omojo already mentioned earlier when she was introducing herself, which is whatever you're doing currently, put your best foot forward, right? I think your work speaks for itself, right? If you're a contract staff anywhere and you're putting 100% of your work of your effort into the work you're doing, and your work is coming out well, I think it's a no-brainer for anybody that is in need of your skills to retain you, right? So I think for that part of the question is just putting your best foot forward at every point in time, right? Just do your best at every particular point in time. I'll let the speakers take the rest of the question.
All right, thank you very much. Let's have Ewery. Ewery wants to speak, yeah?
Okay, so I'll just add to what I said, put your best foot forward. And then for me, when I was initially on like my contract, what I did was to first of all ask if there's room to be like converted to full time, because some companies might not have that kind of arrangement. So it's always good to clarify if there's that arrangement, and then define what success looks like in that role. So it's also very good for you to have like a good definition of what you're working towards. Okay, if I do this, this, and this, I probably would be successful at this role. So it's good to define that and then have a conversation with your manager on like what they are looking for long term. So that was like super helpful for me to be able to clarify that. And then in terms of resume templates, I don't know, you can check out Wonsulting, Wonsulting. Their resume template is like very pretty standard, and mine's like really similar to that. So yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Ewery. Omojo, do you have anything to say?
Nothing more to add. Dami and Ewery did justice to the question.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. We would not be able to take all of the questions because we've spent so much time. So that's Larry and Emeka. You guys can send your questions to Enoverlab community group. There are product managers that will be willing to answer your questions. There are senior product managers in Enoverlab community. There are, mid-level product managers and also people that are just starting out in product management. We would have loved to take all of these questions, but unfortunately, we are fast spent on time, and we would not like to keep our speakers. Would not like to take much of their time. Let me just put it that way. So I would like to ask, now that we're rounding up, so our speakers, of course, thank you very much for joining this conversation. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. And would like to get your final notes or your final words regarding this meeting. So how do I put this question now? Okay, what would you advise an entry-level product manager to focus on, right, to get PM role and to keep a PM role at a top company? What would you really advise to an aspiring PM or an entry-level PM on how to get a PM role and how to keep the PM role at a top tech company? So since Dami has said I'm not following the ladies first rule, so I'm just going to go ahead to ask Omojo first, then Ewery next, then Dami will go last. Let's have Omojo.
Okay, thank you very much. So for entry level PM role at a top tech company, my advice would be to work on your resume, apply to as many roles as possible, prepare for the interview, right? So, Ere give some books like Cracking the PM Interview, The Code and Conquer, or yeah, that she talked about. Because when you get there, even though you have no background on PM work, there are some questions that you would still be asked, right? Where do you see yourself? And what would be your 5 years vision, for example, for a particular product? Or how can you design telephone for children? Just those examples that really test your intuition, touches on strategy, that knows, and that can also talk about your estimation on metrics. For example, I've had where an entry level PM is asked for how how many pizzas, right? How many pizza can feed the whole of Lagos, right? They're not necessarily asking you for count, but just really knowing how you solve problems. So you need to hone your problem solving skills and yeah, get more knowledge through boot camps, apply as much as possible, practice well for your interview because when you have that opportunity, you really want to shine and be preferred amongst the others. So, and practice also helps to build your confidence. So, another thing I like to say is reach out as much as possible to recruiters on LinkedIn, to some of the links that have been shared here today, and continue to do so. And then, if you're working on other roles, I am seeking to transition, create time purposely to learn and grow. And don't get caught up in the day's work and forget what your aim or your plan is. Try and be consistent and you'll do great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Omojo. That's very.
I think she's actually said everything. She has touched on the kind of interviews you have and what you're looking out for. For me, what I'll just add, similar to what she has said, just put yourself out there. Because I think like rejection is a general theme that I got from like today's conversation. And to be honest, that's the worst that can happen. It might not be easy to deal with, but just try to separate it from like your person. And it's not like an insult to your person. It's just that, okay, you're not a good fit for this role. But don't let that deter you from putting yourself out there. Because even interviewing is a skill and you only get better by interviewing and like by practicing. So it's always just good to put yourself out there with mocks and applying and doing all these things. So yeah, don't be scared.
All right. Thank you very much, Uri. That's very, very important. Put yourself out there. Don't be scared. I mean, you can only get a no, and the world continues. You just have to keep going, keep moving. Thank you very much. Jamie, let's have you.
Okay, thank you. I think the ladies have touched on everything. But I'd just like to say, like Omojo said, right? The interview process is very important, right? And in my experience, one thing I like to share with people and something that worked for me is practice interviews, right? In practicing interviews, yeah, you get more refined in your answers, right? You get more clarity as to what you want to say. And it's best if these practice interviews are done with people that have a lot more experience than you, so they can also advise as well and kind of like give you suggestions as to how to refine your answers to get to the point, maybe quicker or more crisper in your conversations as well. So I just like to add that as well. And also for me as well, from experience, I think this is something Ewe also touched on. Do not let the rejection deter you, right? Everybody gets rejected at some point. It's part of the process, kind of, right? So I don't think that should stop you from applying, right? So apply as much as you can to the same place, even if you can sometimes, because yeah, so basically, don't let rejection tell you, and practice interviews are very helpful as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Dami. Thank you, Iri. Thank you, Omo. This session has been insightful, I must say. I mean, I'm just glad that we're on this call and we're hearing from people in these top tech companies to just come speak to us, come let us in on how to go about getting a job role at top tech companies. Thank you all very much for joining this product session. There